Hello everyone, Patching Day's second video, so we're on the 5-day forecast. You can find videos of that here on the home page. Just scroll down the page, it's underneath link ads. There's also a written version, you get to that via buttons at the top of the page. Going to be 5 days of change. We're going to start off with the dry weather that's been dominating for quite a long time now, and we're going to replace that with something rather more unsettled. I'll let you have a look at the 5-day forecast and see what you think. This is extending out beyond the 5-day forecast period, so we're going to have a look at weather the next week to 10 days. Then we'll have a look at Beijing Climate Centre for the next 40 days. So we'll start off with the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next 2 weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. So we're a little bit above average now. We're actually going to have quite a warmish spell of weather over the next day or two. Over the weekend, looks like the temperature is going to drop. And then next week, you're going to get quite a push up in the temperatures just there. It looks like it could turn really quite warm for 2 or 3 days down in the south next week. Temperatures might go into the low 20s Celsius, possibly a little bit higher than that, maybe 24 or 25 degrees. It will depend on how much sunshine we have. Now, after that, it looks like the temperatures are falling away. So as you go into the second half of the month, this period just here, it looks like the temperatures then will be cooling off. Of course, that's a long way away, and it isn't particularly in the reliable time frame there. But fairly good agreement, actually, for such a long time away, that temperatures probably do fall after this warmer interlude up here. In terms of precipitation, so we have got rainfall spikes pretty much throughout the graph now, actually. So clearly the closing days of the warm spell, which is just spell, or the dry spell, is on its way out. And then we'll have precipitation. Looks like we've got precipitation coming up at fairly regular intervals, but they are fairly small spikes, so that's the caveat. It looks like it's all very showery, nothing really definitively wet coming through there. There will be some heavier downpours at the end of the week, and probably some heavier downpours later next week. But overall, you wouldn't say that's a definitively wet chart by any means. It certainly is not enough there to say we're going to make up the rainfall deficit that we've had over the past few months. But I think generally more changeable is the message for this middle phase of May. Temperature anomalies for next week are looking like this. They are warming up. The colder than average temperature anomalies are now being pushed back into the east and northeast of Europe. So Scandinavia is still very significantly colder than average, as is most parts of western Russia and down into eastern Europe. But out in the west, clearly, have got a bit of a warming trade now. So the temperature anomaly is a little bit above average for the UK and Ireland for the next week, 10th to the 18th of May. Precipitation anomalies are also turning wetter. So for the next week, it looks like Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of Western Britain generally coming out with slightly above average precipitation. The south and southeast still drier than average, but I would expect even there these will trend a little bit wetter. And overall, that does look a more changeable week coming up for the 10th to the 18th of May. So this is how the GFS is looking for Sunday then, and we've got low pressure out to the west of us, and also these southwesterly winds. I think Sunday will be a day of sunshine and showers essentially. Monday we bring a warm front across the country. That probably will bring a band of rain, especially to the north and west. This ridge probably keeps the southeast mostly dry. And then after that, actually we find this area of high pressure intensifying across France, and we're starting to drag up quite a warm southerly southwesterly wind, particularly to southern parts of the country. So that's our warmer interlude that we get through the early part of next week. That's still hanging on into Wednesday, although this area of low pressure just here is deepening around Iceland, and it's pushing a front that way. So southern counties on Wednesday will still be warm, possibly into below mid-20 Celsius, but northern areas will be turning cooler, and it'll still be quite changeable. And then the second half of next week, it looks like we bring that cooler air down from the north and the northwest. That's coming into quite warm air, and if it's unstable, we might get some thundery showers breaking out, actually, with that. But the main thing will be that the temperature starts to cool back down again, and then actually it turns quite cool at the end of next week. This particular run of the GFS is turning winds back into the north again, so we get a bit of a northerly shot at the end of next week. That's how we look on day 10, Saturday 20th of May, where we've still got a little bit of a northerly influence, but the high pressure starting to topple in from the west. That could still be showery in the east, but in the west it would be mostly dry, but quite chilly again. The air is still coming from a north or northwesterly direction. ECWF looking like this, so Sunday is quite a changeable day with sunshine and showers. There's that build of pressure to the south on Monday. There's the low pressure out in the Atlantic feeding up that southwesterly wind. That looks quite pleasant for Tuesday. Now, Scotland and Northern Ireland could still have some cloud and showery outbreaks of rain there, but for England and Wales, it's mostly dry, close to this ridge, and we are bringing the air up from the south, so I think temperatures could easily be in the low 20s, possibly a little bit higher on Tuesday next week. And unlike the GFS, the ECM is actually keeping this high pressure around for a little bit longer. So Wednesday, that could well be seeing temperatures into the mid-20s Celsius there. The low pressure that's breaking things down by Wednesday with the GFS, that's still quite a long way away from us, so that implies really quite a warm, dry day on Wednesday. And as I say, with the winds from a south-southeasterly direction off the continent, I think 25 degrees there is easily possible. Still looking quite warm on Thursday, but actually it's beginning to wobble a little bit. We've got low pressure out to west, low pressure starting to push up from the south too. That could be quite thundery there in the second half of next week, breaking down that warmer phase of weather. And then by the time you get through to the end of next week, we are firmly in an unsettled pattern then. Low pressure is out across Ireland with feeding winds in from the west, so we're cutting off that warm southerly flow. Be much cooler and fresher, and probably quite showery, especially in the north and west. We end up on day 10 looking unsettled, really. Low pressures to the north of Scotland. We're bringing the winds in from a west-northwesterly direction. So it's not the northerly that the GFS is shown by day 10, but it is more unsettled than the GFS. So it swings and roundabouts, really. The GFS only has a day or two of warmer weather early next week and then quickly cuts that off. We turn winds into the north, whereas the ECWF probably has a longer, warmer spell going from Monday through to Tuesday through to Wednesday, possibly in the east, still lasting into Thursday, but it's probably more thundery and it probably finishes up more unsettled than the GFS. So still to be determined, really, the exact course of events through the course of next week. Finally, just having a look at the Beijing Climate Centre for the next 40 days. These are 500 of our heights broken down into 10-day periods. Remember, these are extrapolating to pressure. So blue is extrapolating to low pressure. It's below average heights, but it extrapolates to low pressure. And orange is above average heights, which extrapolates to high pressure. So for the coming 10-day period, it looks quite changeable. Low pressure is up to the north, got the ridge out to the west. And we do sink this trough over the country. So it looks a more changeable 10-day period, albeit we've already established it's not going to be a complete washout by any means. It's not going to be day after day of relentless rainfall, just more showery, I suppose, compared to what we've enjoyed over the past few weeks. But there will be a reasonable amount of dry weather, especially through the early part of next week. The second 10-day period, taking us from the 21st through to the 30th of May, we have this ridge through the central Atlantic, going through to the south of the country. Below average heights are to the north, that's low pressure, and jet stream going through there. So that places us on the mild side of the jet. We are close to a ridge, so that looks quite nice there for the closing stages of May. Of course, that encompasses the late spring bank holiday weekend. By the way, updates for the late spring bank holiday weekend will begin at the weekend. That will be when the late spring bank holiday weekend will come into the time frame of the GFS model. So another bank holiday weekend for May is looming quite closely. Then we go through to the second 10-day period, which is the 31st of May to the 9th of June. Heights are pulling out into central Atlantic, bit of a trough out to the north and the west of the country. That's probably turning the winds into a cooler northwesterly direction. I would think still reasonably, a fair amount of reasonable dry weather, but it is a bit cooler there, I would have thought there, as we're starting June. Possibly a bit showery as well. And then we go through to the final 10-day period, which is the 10th through to the 19th of June, and we're building the heights back in again. So that implies a lot of dry unsettled weather there as we're going through the middle part of June. Of course, the sun is rapidly strengthening this time of year, so high pressure, even though it is centred a little bit to our west, high pressure close to the country in June is going to be producing a lot of quite warm and fine conditions. So overall, there's nothing too bad coming up. It looks like we're going to turn things a bit more showery over the next few days. Early next week, we're going to get this push of warmth from the south. Quite how long that lasts, still open to question. But GFS only has it for a day or two. The ECMWF extends it out by a day or so more. By the end of next week, both models are in agreement that things are more unsettled and cooler again. And then beyond that, the Beige Climate Centre suggests that high pressure is never going to be all that far away, really, through the second half of May. So although we might have more showery conditions in the second half of the month, overall, there's no sign of a prolonged and protracted spell of unsettled weather at this stage. We'll wait and see how things develop, of course. Right, don't forget to check out 5-day forecast if you haven't yet done so. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.